Hi, this is Greg Hughes from .com Classroom. I'm making this video because I want to talk to you about web hosting. I was in the web hosting business for over 20 years, but I'm not anymore because I recently closed my hosting company. Although I still do business online and have several websites of my own, I no longer had a place to store them when I closed my hosting business. For the last 20 years, I've just been hosting my own websites because I had a lot of web servers that I could use. But when I was closing that business, I needed a place to move my websites to. Now, since I know a lot about web hosting and domains and building websites, email, all that kind of stuff, I did a lot of research to find just the right host for my own online properties. In this video, I want to show you how I chose the web hosting company that I did, and hopefully that will help you make a good choice about where you should host your websites. But before we do that, I want to take just a couple of minutes to explain how web hosting works. Most people don't know this part, but I really think it helps when you're shopping for the right host. Setting up a website with a hosting company is almost exactly like renting an apartment. Here's what I mean. Web hosting companies have things called web servers that they use to rent space for people to store their websites on. Just like a management company has apartment buildings they rent space in so people can store their stuff. A server is a lot like an apartment building. A web hosting account is like renting one apartment inside that one building. And the website you store there is like your furniture, clothes, food, and all your stuff. This kind of hosting is called shared hosting, and it's what most people do because it's inexpensive. There are other kinds of hosting like dedicated server hosting, but that's a lot more expensive. That's like renting the whole building just for yourself. And then there's a virtual private server or VPS hosting. That's sort of like renting one entire floor of the apartment building. So for this lesson, let's just stick with the most common kind, shared hosting. When you purchase a shared hosting account, you're sharing the same server with a lot of other people, just like you would have neighbors in your building. That building has its own address, as does a web server. It's called an IP address, and it's unique. No other server in the world has that same IP. That building also has a name, just like your apartment complex might have a name. And then each tenant in the building has their own secured space so that no one can get into the apartment without having the keys. For your web hosting account, that's your username and password. And then, of course, there's your domain name. That's the unique address you use for your specific apartment. That's why you need to make sure your domain points to the right server name when you register it. That way, when people go to yourdomain.com, they land in the right website. But there are some problems with shared hosting, and that's why I want to make sure you know how to find a host that understands how to manage these potential problems. Let's talk about three of the biggest problems. The first one is speed. When you're sharing a server with several hundred other websites, you're also sharing certain server resources. One of your neighbors may have a lot of traffic, and that can actually sometimes affect the speed of your website. That's why you want a host that has solutions for keeping your site up and loading as quickly as possible. You want a web host that uses and provides something called a CDN. That means a content delivery network. And it causes your website to load faster by pre-saving copies of your website, those files on various CDN servers around the globe. It's very important that you have good website speed in order for your websites to rank high in Google, for example, and for your users to be able to access your website appropriately. The second problem with shared hosting has to do with your email. Because you're sharing a server with other website owners, you're also sharing an IP address. Even if you use what's called a dedicated IP on your hosting account, the base number in that address is still associated with the whole shared server. So if you happen to be hosting next to someone or on the same server as someone that does a lot of spamming, it's quite possible that your IP address could get blacklisted, and that would prevent your emails from getting through the way they should. But the right web host can prevent this from happening to you by providing the necessary protocols for your outgoing mail. So a good web host provides the proper SMTP sender authentication, it's called, and then something called a PTR record for the mail server, a firewall, SPF for your incoming mail, a domain key or DKIM, and SSL for security, all kinds of technical acronyms we won't go into now that just simply mean that they keep your email, your domain, and your IP address as clean as possible assuming, of course, you don't do any spamming with it. So you don't want a host that cannot provide or explain the need for these important safeguards. Problem number 3, you need a good control panel. For years, the hosting company I ran used a control panel called cPanel. I was a big cPanel fan because it was a great dashboard that allows you to manage all the things your web hosting account can do. Inside cPanel is your file manager for uploading websites, a place to create and check email accounts, and of course dozens of other features from the very basics to advanced things like MySQL databases and PHP management, all kinds of stuff. But before you choose a host, you need to make sure their control panel is very user-friendly. Hosting is complicated enough. You don't need to have a steep learning curve when it comes to managing your website and domain. So for all of these reasons, and for many more reasons I haven't listed, I chose a company called SiteGround to host all of my websites. Now, while I'm no longer in the hosting business, I still do business online. I have a lot of websites. I create content, I produce video, I do training for digital and affiliate marketing, I build websites, I run an e-commerce website. So that's why I need good hosting. So let me take you to my SiteGround account so I can show you around, and so I can show you why I chose them as the best choice for my online businesses. Before I log into my SiteGround account, let me just point something out about this company that's pretty amazing. Their content delivery network, the CDN, is built on Google's cloud infrastructure, which is a big deal. The reason that is because they can be in multiple continents. This is what causes SiteGround to be able to really increase load times for your website, which are really important not only for your visitors, but also for your search engine optimization. They've got data centers and CDN locations throughout multiple continents all over the globe. So redundancy is about uptime. And that's because all of their data centers have a top level of redundancy. So electrical outages are prevented by these multiple power feeds. That's what makes everything fast and secure. And since they're part of the Google Cloud infrastructure, this is a carbon neutral system. And high levels of security is what prevents things like people hacking into websites and using it to send spam. So SiteGround is beyond secure. These are some of the main reasons why SiteGround is my number one choice when it comes to security, website speed, and uptime. So now let's log in so I can show you the control panel. Their interface is really easy to look at, user-friendly. The dashboard is really easy to get around. You can see all of my websites in one place. I can easily add a new website by clicking a button. But let's go into one of the control panels for one of my websites. Let's go right here to .comclassroom.com. Now, you remember I told you I was a big fan of cPanel for many, many years. This is very much like cPanel, only better. I like it better because it's easier to look at, easier to get around. All of the features that you would expect for a web hosting account are here and then some, and really simple to get to. I won't go into every tool and every detail because if you want to learn about how to use these tools, you can subscribe to my channel or follow my website at .comclassroom.com, and we'll have tutorials about a lot of these tools. This will just give you an overview of what's in here. The dashboard is easy to manage. I've got 5 tools pinned to the top here that I like to get to more often. I can edit this at any time by clicking this button. If I want to add or remove something from what's pinned, I can do that here very easily just by pinning it and then going up here and saving my changes. If we look over here, the list of tools are broken down into categories. Under the site category, that's where you find something like how to manage your website, like your file manager. You may be familiar with this if you've used a cPanel server. This is the same thing, only like I said, I think it's a little easier to look at and get to. Here's your public HTML folder. That's where your website's stored. You can also create FTP accounts, manage MySQL databases, and so on. There's a security section where you can create and restore from backups. You can see I have daily backups automatically running in here. There's your SSL manager. You're ready to use SSL. You just click a button and it installs. Under security, you also find things where you can create protected URLs, block certain traffic, and use SiteGround's unique site scanner, which helps detect malware that may be existing on your website. Under the speed category, that's where I access the content delivery network. And this is where I just activated it by clicking a button. And now I'm using the free version of the CDN. SiteGround is very WordPress friendly. They have a whole lot of WordPress tools. In fact, you can literally install WordPress at the click of a button. And if you wanted WordPress plus WooCommerce, which is a common e-commerce plugin for WordPress, again, you can select both of those at the click of a button. They also have a really cool staging area where if you want to change your website, but you don't want it to go live yet, you can create a staging copy of the website. And then once the changes are made, you simply click a button and deploy your new website over your old one without interrupting anything. If you're migrating a WordPress site from another host, they've got a tool that does that, as well as several others. You can manage domains here by providing park domains, subdomains, redirected domains, and all the things you think you'd want to do with your domains. Here you can create and manage your email accounts. You can check your email in here, or you can just go to the URL to read your email that's hosted at SiteGround. You can also, of course, create email forwarders, autoresponders, and so on. Spam protection is great, easy to use. And in fact, there's even a feature in here for those of you that want to use your Gmail address associated with your domain. Of course, you have to have a Google Workspace account to do that. If you don't have one, SiteGround will help you get one at a discount here. It's very common now and popular to use a Gmail address and associate it with your company's domain name. For your traffic and your stats, simply a click away, and all the tools you think you would need, including high-level advanced ones. So that's a quick overview of the control panel. And again, it's really important to have one that doesn't require a big learning curve. So I'm hoping this video helps you make a good decision when you're choosing the next web host. My recommendation is SiteGround.